Dr. Jaishankar, thank you very much for joining us at the Rising Bharat Summit. You've come here every time we've had a Rising Bharat Summit, so this is your third edition here. But I want to start off with something significant which some of our audiences may also be interested in knowing. It is the number 2140. Does that hold any special significance for you? I shall enlighten our audience and maybe even enlighten you. That's the number of days that...
This sounds like one of Elon Musk's tweets.
That's the number of days he's been External Affairs Minister. He's the longest serving External Affairs Minister of India since Nehru. So we can have a round of applause for that. And what a time to be in charge of India's foreign policy. You look back at the last 5 years and 10 months now, it's going to be almost 6 years. What do you think has been Indian foreign policy's singular achievement in these last 6 years? One thing if you were to name, with the mic, sir.
I would say, this is Bharat rising. So how do you manage the process of rise under extremely turbulent conditions? Because managing a process of rise is tough enough, but countries normally hope that you get a very conducive environment. We've got as tough an environment as anybody could no, not hope for.
Not hope for.
Anybody could actually
imagine.
And I think getting through that, just look at these last 6 years from a foreign policy perspective. You've had Ukraine, you've had the Middle East, you've had the whole Indo-Pacific turbulence, you had Afghanistan, you've had Myanmar, you've had COVID, you've had meltdown of various kinds, political changes in our neighbors. Actually the stresses and it's not just change. There have been big events, there have been fractures, there have been stresses, there have been surprises. So it's been as turbulent as it could have been.
I do want to, so since you said it's been challenging circumstances, it's beyond what anyone could have imagined. Let's address the elephant in the room, and that is the tariffs that have kicked in today. That's what our business editors have been telling us. The reciprocal tariffs have kicked in today. And first of all, I'd like to understand from you, what is your assessment, what is your reading of, what is going to be the impact of these reciprocal tariffs on India? What is India's strategy to try and deal with the fallout of it? If you could sort of, elucidate what your views are.
I don't think it's possible to speak about what would be the impact because we don't know. What is our strategy? I think that's pretty clear. We decided that we will engage the Trump administration early on this set of issues. We were very open with them, very constructive with them, as they were with us. What we agreed to do was to try to negotiate a bilateral trade agreement by fall of this year. To the best of my knowledge, and I could be corrected here, I think we are the only country after President Trump has assumed presidency the second time which has actually reached such an understanding in principle. So I don't know, every country, because every country is tariffed, okay? So every country in the world today is fashioning its own strategy of dealing with the United States. In our case, our strategy has a goal. And the goal is to see whether it's possible to actually deal with this situation by concluding a bilateral trade agreement. And I should add that in an interesting way, this has long been our objective. The present situation may have created the circumstances for such a serious conversation. But if you look at President Trump's first term, we were actually negotiating a trade deal which could not fructify. And if one looks even at Biden's administration, we discussed trade possibilities and we ended up with the IPEF initiative. they were very averse to doing a bilateral agreement. So from the Indian perspective, actually doing, working out something bilaterally with the United States is not at all a sort of a negative or a, sort of unwanted situation. On the contrary, it is something which has long been our objective.
But tell me, Dr. Jaishankar, as you take a moment to drink water, you've been part of many bilateral negotiations, trade negotiations in the past. These things take time. You said we're hopeful that the BTA will be wrapped up by the fall. Two things. What happens if it doesn't and if it takes longer than that? And two, how confident are you that you can actually wrap it up by the fall?
Well, I've always wondered why it takes such a long time. Frankly, I've never figured it out.
You tell us.
No, I've never figured it out because, I see, we have trade negotiations which have been going on for decades. And the negotiators meet, I think, every 6 months or 3 months or 4 months. And I wonder why. I mean, if I were doing a negotiation, I'd be at it till I got the job done. And I think today, when I look back at the last, since the Prime Minister's visit, I'd say mid-Feb, so we're about 6 weeks since then, we've actually had multiple rounds in this period. I think we've had more periods, discussions with the Americans in the last 6 weeks than I suspect we've had with the Europeans in the last 2 years.
Wow. More discussions with the US in the last 6 weeks than what you've had with Europe in 2 years. But you're also sort of accelerating the FTA talks with EU, with UK and so on. Do you think that, this is a 35,000 feet view question, do you reckon that Mr. Trump, by doing what he's doing, is forcing other countries to start trading more with each other and start processing these FTAs in a quicker fashion?
Look, you are attributing everything in a way to President Trump. I understand why. But I want you to look at it for a moment from an Indian perspective.
Sure.
Okay? Let us say, since the beginning of reform, 1990s, in 30 years, what are your FTA agreements? They're largely to the economies east of India, with the ASEAN members, with Japan, with Korea, Australia, which is not the same. Now, where are actually your many of these are competitive economies.
Yeah.
Okay? In fact, with most of these countries, we are running today trade deficits. Now, where is the natural growth potential for our exports? It's to the countries west of us. It's in the Gulf, it's in Europe, it's in the UK, it's in the United States, possibly in Latin America. And actually, those are the agreements which have lagged behind. So it's been our endeavor, I can tell you. I mean, from 2014, for example, we've been pressing the Europeans saying, look, can we re-engage, because we had stopped engaging. Then after Brexit, we responded very quickly to the UK's interest in reaching an agreement. We see an opportunity, in the current situation vis-a-vis the United States. These are, to me, really the priorities which we should be doing. We should be doing it in our own interest, not because some other president of another country says he's created a situation.
I want to talk a little bit about Europe, because you had sort of become a bit of a lightning rod for them about talking about oil imports from Russia, saying how can you import from a country that's gone into war and invaded and so on. And you've laid out very articulately for India and for the rest of the world what India's position is. Now the same Europeans are scampering for an FTA with India. Do you see a double standard there? Or?
No. I think you're being unfair to Europe. Yes, you're being unfair to Europe. I think the Europeans were serious about an FTA earlier. It's just we haven't seen that kind of urgency. Maybe their way of working is different. So I can't expect everybody to be the same. So they take, typically they have taken much longer periods between interacting with each other. My point is that, look, Europe today, I think, realizes the importance of deeper ties with India and the relevance of the FTA for that purpose. We had in the end of February 21 European commissioners led by President von der Leyen visiting India, very unique happening, not just for India, even for them. They don't normally do that. I think there's a very serious message coming out of Europe saying we want to move forward on this. We welcome it, we reciprocate it, and I'm pretty confident that just as we are seeing a very intense engagement with the United States, and by the way with the UK as well, I expect the pace to pick up with Europe. We have an aspirational goal. We'd like to close out the FTA this year, but you know, when we get there, we'll see.
I want to talk about the neighborhood. Last time you were here at the summit, you know, the big concern, the big talking point was the relationship with China, and you had said that the relationship is not normal, and you know, we need to deal with the situation at the border for the relationship to become normal. Now there's been a disengagement process. The Prime Minister has met with the Chinese President. You've met with your counterpart, I think, on a couple of occasions since then. How would you describe the state of the relationship with China? How far away from normal is it?
Well, it's obviously better than the last time I was here.
Sure.
I think the disengagement, particularly the Depsang-Temchok, was important. We are now addressing, to some extent, issues on the border because there's been a force build-up over a period of years. But there were many other things which also happened during this period. You know, some of it was a collateral of the situation. Some of it was actually a carryover from the COVID era. For example, our flights, direct flights, stopped during COVID. They were not resumed. The Kailash Mansarovar Yatra stopped during COVID. It did not again resume. So I think there is work to be done. We are at it. We are, you know, sort of trying to see whether a lot of this post-COVID and, you know, parallel to the border tension, the combination of these issues, how much we can progress on this. We are looking at it because at the end of the day, I mean, we have always maintained that the situation which we saw between 2020 and 2024 was not in the interest of either country. It was not in the interest of our relationship. And I think there is a recognition of that now.
So it's on the road to being normal again?
Well, I think we are moving in a positive direction. You know, the problem with your profession is you want instantaneous transformation. The challenge of my profession is it's a very arduous and painstaking one.